Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Ingrid Coetzee, and I'm the Director of Biodiversity, Nature and Health at ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Centre. And I'm really excited to be moderating the first in a new series that we're starting. And today is really just an appetizer. But the whole idea is that we will be running a series of learning labs for those cities that have joined up to Journeys for Life. Now, I can see we're still having one or two participants come in. So while they come in, I just want to give you a few housekeeping rules. All of the participants are muted today during our webinar. And so if you do have a comment to make or a question, I ask that you please put it into the chat box, which you'll find the little tab at the bottom. And if you want to direct your comment or question to a specific speaker, please just identify who that is. And the last thing I need to say in terms of our housekeeping rules is that we are recording this session. So just to also be able to share it with everybody afterwards. And then just to mention that by staying in the recording session, it does mean that you give us permission to record. And with these few short words, I am going to introduce and invite Kobie Brandt, who's ICLEI's Deputy Secretary General, and she's also the Global Director of the Cities Biodiversity Centre, to open and welcome you all to this first learning lab. Kobie, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, and thank you everybody for joining us. It's a true honor and a pleasure to be here with you. As Ingrid said, this is a precursor webinar to a Journeys for Life Learning Lab series, which will focus on capacity building and connecting and sharing. And I'll speak a little bit more about that in a while. But firstly, I'd like to say welcome to everybody. It is my great pleasure on behalf of ICLEI to welcome you all, our speakers, our colleagues, and all attendees on behalf of ICLEI and the many partners we work with in this space. This webinar series is a precursor to the Journeys for Life Learning Lab series, which is a capacity building component of our Journeys for Life program, which in turn aims to support the objectives of the Convention for the Conservation of Migratory Species, CMS, by facilitating collaboration between cities that are located along migratory routes of certain migratory species. To enhance the ecological connectivity, promote habitat restoration and protection, and encourage the integration of migratory species considerations into urban planning. We know that as many birds, other mammals, plants, not plants, mammals, other forms of life, marine life, etc., when they journey on their migratory routes, they do need very safe habitats and ecosystems along that route to facilitate them arriving safely at their destinations, where they spend time, where they breed, where they, in fact, have to spend time for their very survival. And then on the way back to up and to very often north to south, etc., but also east to west, they have to stop over in very, very critically endangered sometimes areas. Very often it's wetlands where there's water, where there's food, where there's shelter for them. And very often these habitats and these ecosystems on which they depend on their journeys and also at their destinations are located in or very close to our cities. And we know that we are urbanizing, we're losing more and more habitat to urbanization, and that also impacts very much on these routes and these journeys that these species undertake. And we know that we're critically interdependent with nature, so we need to preserve and protect these migratory routes, and cities can indeed play and are already taking fantastic actions in making sure that these species thrive on their journeys. And this is why Journeys for Life for me is such an inspirational umbrella under which we do our work with our cities on these migratory routes. So the CMS Convention has demonstrated commendable progress in embracing diverse voices and perspectives, including those of cities and regions. And ICLEI has been recognized in the CMS Resolution on Synergies and Partnerships and is a member of the Global Partnership on Ecological Connectivity. Considering our latest engagement and cooperation with the convention and the inclusion of urban settlements as a key area for ecological connectivity, Journeys for Life, and this webinar series are all opportunities to further amplify the impact of our constituency of cities around the world at a global scale. So thank you for joining us when we embrace the role that cities can play and embrace also the innovative actions that cities are already taking along these routes. Let's amplify this, let's do more together, and I'm looking forward to this webinar. Thank you very much, Ingrid.
Thanks, Kirby, and for always inspiring us to do more. So with that, I'm going to ask Yvette Stewart, and she's the Community Outreach Manager from the Audubon Society, which is one of these amazing organizations that does a lot of birds in the world. And she will say a few words for us. Yvette, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much for allowing Audubon to be here and to talk about the importance
Yvette,
of
we can't hear. If you can just turn your volume up a little bit, please. I can see Yvette's got what is that, a parakeet on her shoulder. So she's brought nature into into our session. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me now?
No, but I think just carry on. Maybe if you stand closer to the mic. You were fine just now.
Okay, hi, thank you so much for having Audubon here. I hope everyone can hear me. Audubon is working in the Western Hemisphere to help birds that are migrating through our entire hemisphere to have safe places to rest, recuperate, and breed. And so, as many folks know, the biggest threat to birds is habitat destruction. And when we improve our human world, we tend to destruct the bird world and all the other species that depend on those same habitats. So for Audubon, since the 3 billion bird report came out in 2019, which stated that birds have declined by over 3 billion birds since 1970, we have been working very diligently to think about ways to help birds and other migratory species. So here in Texas, we have the Bird City Texas program in partnership with the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. We are encouraging all urban communities to think about how we can better integrate human spaces with wildlife spaces, specifically planting native plants, reducing our lights at night to help our migratory birds get where they need to be during breeding and resting seasons, as well as doing things to help improve the human structure. So reducing the glare off of our windows to reduce bird impact, as well as reducing free roaming cats. So anything that folks can do to keep their cats inside. We know that cats are very detrimental to our migratory species, whether that is small mammals, small insects like our monarch butterflies, or our bird population. So we are very encouraged to hear people's interest in combining urban conservation and protecting migratory species. When birds are healthy, humans are healthy. Birds reflect our world around us. They are sensitive to pollution like we are. They will help us understand how we can better improve the world. So birds are keystone species, and we are delighted to hear how people are trying to improve the world around them for all migratory species. And thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. And I think you have a nod of approval from your own little birdie. And I can imagine there's going to be lots of questions. So I hope you're able to stay on a little bit so that we can find out more about the sorts of solutions that your society has come up with. So before I introduce our speakers, I just want to say a few words around how we're going to run this particular session. We're going to have some specialists and some experts in the field speak to us and just give their reflections and from their knowledge and expertise what the main challenges are. And then that will be followed. We have 3 cities represented here this afternoon, and our city representatives will speak to their own particular contexts around the challenges and some of the solutions that they've come up with. And then hopefully, because there's so much information to share here this afternoon, but hopefully we will then at the end have some time for the cities and the specialists and to engage and discuss with each other. So without further ado, and I would invite now Louisa, and she can get her PowerPoint presentation ready so long. Louisa, while I just tell everybody a little bit more about Louisa. She is, I think somebody's got a PowerPoint. Louisa, there you are. So Louisa is the Regional Program Manager from Wetlands International, specifically the East Africa branch. And she's an environmental professional whose expertise spans critical areas such as biodiversity conservation, integrated water resources management. We talked about the importance of water and wetlands, as well as GIS, climate change, etc. And she champions holistic approaches to addressing complex environmental problems towards sustaining our natural environment. Louisa, over to you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Good evening from Nairobi, Kenya. As Ingrid mentioned, my name is Louisa Chinyavu. I'm based in the Nairobi office, the Regional Program Manager of Wetlands International Eastern Africa. And I'm very pleased to have an opportunity today to discuss with you on how we can look at aspects on migratory pathways and also just to contribute on how wetland conservation and collaborative action are key navigators towards these urban challenges. So basically, Wetlands International is an international organization, NGO, that focuses on wetland conservation, safeguarding these critical ecosystems for people and nature. And we work across 3 diverse landscapes. So that is on rivers and lakes, and coasts and deltas, and also on peatlands. However, that does not mean we don't look at other aspects in the environment. So we basically consider these as our flagship landscapes, but we look at other aspects that contribute to environmental and social, systems and linkages. So I won't go much into Wetlands International, but just to mention some highlights that we have 19 independent offices, which are spread across the globe. And also to mention that in Africa, we have the Eastern Africa region, and we also have a Western African region and Sahel office. But for Eastern Africa, we are based in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. And also we have some activities, or rather some implementation of activities in other parts where we don't have local offices, but we work closely to support these countries, for example, in the Western Indian Ocean. So in Mozambique, we support some activities there, but we are not physically located there. So Wetlands International Eastern Africa, again, we are guided by 5 key result areas, which are strategic themes from our strategic plan 2024 to 2030. And we look at enhancing wetland ecosystem integrity and resilience, thriving communities, strengthening policies and governance frameworks, institutional frameworks, enhancing knowledge and capacity, and also to strengthen this capacity and sustainability. And now this slide just showcases some of our activities across the region. For example, the beekeeping, which is an alternative livelihood that we have introduced in some parts of Kenya, in Lamu specifically, and in the Rufiji in Tanzania. And also on the bottom left, an alert center that focuses on mangrove alerts. And then you can see the women doing some weaving, which is also an alternative livelihood contributing to income generating activities. And also we work with the school children. There's a club we have here in Kenya, Club Mikoko, but also in the picture, that's a school club in Tanzania that also looks at conservation of coastal wetlands. And then again, as I mentioned, we'll also support in institutional and governance frameworks. So a few of the policy briefs that we've worked on. And on the bottom right also, we have a picture of a mangrove restoration site. So into the topic that we're delving in today, we're basically looking at the urban challenges that migratory birds face. And I've summarized this into 3 main points based on our experience here. So first of all, on urban expansion. So due to this, there's a lot of habitat loss and fragmentation resulting in wetlands being converted for other activities, for example, agricultural expansion, human settlement, and also to pave way for infrastructural development. Then secondly, pollution is another challenge that we face within this region. And this is mainly from urban runoff, including industrial waste, domestic waste, also waste from agricultural chemicals and domestic sewage. And all this also degrades the water quality, the impacts all felt on the wetland biodiversity, for example, poisoning issues. And a good example I can give to that as well is the poisoning of vultures after they consume carcasses that have taken up some, for example, diclofenac, which that has been also introduced to livestock here within the region. And this is just one of the examples that we have here. And then thirdly, talk about increased human disturbance, for example, noise and light pollution. So this also basically disrupts bird behavior and also reduces the suitability of these remaining habitats. So next is I'd like to talk about the indispensable role of wetlands in migratory pathways, because wetlands are very important towards this survival of migratory species. As previously mentioned by Ingrid, wetlands also provide habitats, or rather stopover sites for these migratory birds, which are critical stopover sites because this is where they rest and they also recharge. And then there are also breeding grounds for the same migratory birds and wintering areas. Then secondly, wetlands provide essential resources, for example, food, water, and shelter, and this also enables the birds to refuel and rest. And they form vital stepping stones along the migratory flyways, whereby they connect these different geographical regions in the world. So I don't know if the slide is moving. Okay, yeah. So what are we doing and what are we championing as Wetlands International? So for this, we talk about collaborative action in safeguarding these migratory ways, whereby we look at key aspects that contribute to this safeguarding. For example, integrated wetland management. Hereby, we work with the local communities. As I earlier mentioned, we have a strategic theme that focuses on thriving communities. So communities are key for us to ensure that there's integrated wetland management, and other stakeholders, for example, governments, the peer organizations that we work with, the public-private partnerships, and all these contribute to the development and also to the implementation of sustainable management plans for the key wetland sites. Then secondly, on habitat restoration, we work closely to have rehabilitation and restoration of degraded wetlands, and this contributes to improving their ecological function. And also it provides the capacity to support these migratory birds through activities. For example, when we reestablish natural water flow in the mangroves, then we are able to have thriving mangroves, and the birds or even the fishes that depend on these mangroves then are able to find a suitable habitat for them. And then I've spoken about empowering local communities, but also just to ensure that we also include them in monitoring activities, for example, in the wetland assessment techniques and community-based conservation. And specifically, I'll mention about the community-based ecological mangrove restoration techniques, which is a guideline that we've provided in the coast and deltas portfolio in the regions where we work in. And this enables the communities to also have a sense of ownership And then lastly, on policy and advocacy, we work strongly with the national and regional governments to ensure that we align these policies with the national, regional, and international guidelines and frameworks. And also just to mention, for example, the recent Ramsar COP15, whereby we marked and celebrated a milestone whereby we were leading the establishment of the Global Waterbird Estimates Partnerships and the delivery of the 2027 edition of the Waterbird Population Estimates, which shows one of our efforts and commitments towards migratory birds. And specifically, this speaks to waterbirds. And also to mention that this was the first draft resolution that was adopted at the Ramsar COP15. So what are we recommending as Wetlands International? So here I'll be talking about the future directions and recommendations. And first of all is just to ensure that everyone understands that migratory birds are not confined by geographical boundaries. So we need to strengthen transboundary cooperation along these migratory flyways to ensure that we have the different countries and the different regions where birds fly from one destination to another are all speaking with the same voice towards having this conservation of these critical habitats and thus contributing to conservation of migratory birds. And then secondly, investing in scientific research and monitoring is also crucial because this provides an opportunity to better understand the impacts of these urban challenges and also on migratory birds, and contributes to the informative or adaptive management of these strategies. So this is crucial for decision makers and also for policy makers. And then we also look at wetlands as a natural nature-based solutions. So if we promote NBS, nature-based solutions for urban development, for example, through constructed wetlands for wastewater treatment, then this provides an avenue to actually provide and scale up nature-based solutions and also merge these solutions with other approaches or techniques that are provided in other disciplines, and also to just link this to the policy and institutional frameworks that are already developed or are in development. And then lastly, we advocate for stronger policy frameworks and enforcement mechanisms at all levels, local, national, regional, and international, so that we ensure that wetland conservation is prioritized and it's effectively implemented. So with that, this is just a brief introduction to what we as Wetlands International are doing. And again, just to say thank you for the opportunity for me to speak more into our work within the region, and also to encourage others within this call and other speakers also that we are willing to participate in collaborative approaches towards conservation of migratory birds and also safeguarding of migratory pathways. And I'd like to end my presentation with, it's not a quote, but a statement that wetlands are not wastelands. And yeah, these are vital ecosystems that provide numerous benefits for both people and nature. And if you'd like to know more about our work, please through the link that will be provided possibly in the chats or later on and the presentations, you can click on that link. You'll be able to find out more about our work. And also my contacts are indicated there. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you, Ikle and Ingrid, Ivana. I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Louisa. And I'm going to move over now without much further ado to our next speaker. Joseph, please get your presentation ready. So Joseph is an urban wildlife biologist, and he works for the Texas Parks and Wildlife in the US. He has a bachelor's degree in wildlife biology and a master's in wildlife ecology, and his master's focused on remote sensing to evaluate habitat associations of several grassland species in Texas. He's also previously worked with worked on monitoring grassland birds, golden-cheeked warblers, and Texas kangaroo rats. So very well, and in particularly his urban expertise. So Joseph, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ingrid, for that kind introduction. Yes, I'm Joseph Plappert. I'm an urban biologist for the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. So that's a state agency within the United States, working specifically to help urban spaces manage wildlife in the state of Texas. We have a very mighty team of 9 of us covering a very large state. We have 2 here in San Antonio. And so we work on a wide diversity of issues. Everything from people worrying about nuisance raccoons that have gotten into their attic, all the way up to impacting policy and beyond. So today I'm going to talk about just a snapshot issue that we're working on, have been working on for about a decade. It predates my time with the department, and then I'll be talking about the future sustainable solution that we're trying to work towards through our research. And so I'm going to be talking about urban rookeries. And there we go. All right, so what is a rookery? It's a large congregation of colonial nesting water birds. If you kind of squint at the photo on your screen, you can see some clusters of different leaves there. They look maybe like squirrel nests. Those are actually water bird nests. These are the birds in question. It's comprised of multiple species. So we have egrets, that's a snowy egret there. We have herons, we have great blues, little blues, green herons, yellow-crowned night herons. We have cormorants, which are our fish specialists. And, you know, you can have dozens of birds in these rookeries, and they're pretty small and they're pretty innocuous, and they don't tend to disrupt people's lives, and they actually become an interesting tourist attraction very often. But then very quickly overnight, we can go from a few cute birds in a tree to hundreds, if not thousands, of Western cattle egrets coming in overnight. And that's the major one that tends to be fairly disruptive. And because we have so many different species interacting in these rookeries and nesting in these rookeries, their breeding seasons kind of stack on each other. And so they can be active for 10 months out of the year. And here in North America, we have the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Migratory Bird Treaty Act. And so that really limits the types of activities that you can do that would disrupt nesting activities of birds, which is a good thing. But when it's happening in the middle of a city and you tell them, well, okay, you have a construction project that needs to happen in this park, but you can't construct for 10 months out of the year, then it becomes a difficult wildlife conflict situation for us to navigate. So some of the challenges that are caused by this, the noise, the odor, and health hazards are probably the biggest ones. You can see that photo there. That's not a beautifully, freshly paved sidewalk. That's actually white from scat from the birds. That vegetation is normally bright green, and it's all covered in scat. They are mostly piscivorous, so they eat a lot of fish. They regurgitate a lot of fish. The young will perish and be hanging from the trees and laying on the ground. There's a mailbox that is covered in egret poop. And so in this situation, our actual postal service stopped delivering these people's mails because they didn't want to touch the post boxes. And so they had to go to the post office to go pick up their mail instead of having it delivered. And property damage can range from anywhere from a few $100s to, we've even had some cases where it's been upwards of $10,000 of damage to structures where these birds have nested. And then destruction of the vegetation. So this is an island that has been inhabited by these birds for quite some time, and their scat is actually so high in ammonia content that it will actually poison the soil and kill the trees that they're living in. And so there's a lot of different complications that come in when these birds come to town. So what are the challenges in urban areas from the people perspective? So we have a high density of people. We have about 2 million people here in San Antonio. We're one of the smaller of the big 3 cities. We have habitat destruction, transformation, and fragmentation. You can see that's a time lapse of San Antonio from 1984 to 2022. And you can see that rapid land use change. For context, in the upper left-hand corner of that map, that nice big green area, that's where my office is, and where I'm giving this talk from. And then balancing human recreation and bird conservation, right? So we have people that really just want to see the birds, we have people that really hate the birds, and we have people in between, and we got to kind of make everybody work together. And so the biggest and the most difficult part of our job is building consensus. And so Like I said, we have the Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918. It protects against take, so you can't directly remove the birds, and protects against active nests. So while the nests have eggs in it and have young in it, they can't be going and removing those nests. And so for 10 months out of the year, these areas kind of become off limits for any kind of large scale management activity. And so the ways that we have prevented it in the past, the way that we've been able to steer them away from these high impact areas is preventing nesting before it occurs. And so kind of if we see nesting activity happening in an area that we know is going to be very disruptive to people, they are using clapperboards and pyrotechnics to kind of ward them off. Focusing on the scout birds, those are the birds that show up first and earliest to the game, and then all the other birds get the memo from them that it's a nice place to come stay. And then depredation permit is a permit that people can get to remove birds, to remove nests, but that's a last resort and not anything we want to start out with, right? So how do you manage it? You want to be adaptive, be vigilant, identify those scout birds, identify those potential hypothetical nest sites that haven't established yet, be flexible. You got to be adaptive. You can't be just one note when you're going through this. The clapperboards, the bangers, the screamers, that's a pyrotechnic going off. It's worth noting those are not being aimed at the birds. They're just aimed in the air, which causes the birds to fly off from the trees that they're potentially going to nest in, and then hopefully go to a different area that's a little bit less disruptive. And then being proactive, right? We can do habitat modification. So you can see on the left, it's a really dense tree vegetation. On the right, it's been thinned a little bit. It's still beautiful. It's still useful for a lot of wildlife species. It just doesn't quite have the dense overlap that the rookery birds require for their heavy nests and for their heavy offspring. You can do, that's another angle of the habitat modification. You can have scare eye balloons, which are mylar balloons that kind of scare them off, but birds get very used to stimulus in their environment if it stays static for a long time. So you have to kind of constantly be rotating all this stuff through. And then you can also remove old nests to discourage them from coming back the following year. So that's all the background. That's how we've dealt with it in the past. Where are we looking in the future? And we've just kind of gotten this across the starting line, not the finish line. We're looking at anywhere from 5 to 10 years on this research project. But it's the first of its kind. They've never really been looked at on this side of the pond because we haven't really had them on this side of the pond for very, very long. So it's worth noting that even with this future sustainable solution, mitigation will continue at a smaller scale. So they will always be defending certain key areas of the city from these birds moving in. But the goal is if we can create a really good spot for them somewhere else, that's going to decrease the size of those disruptive rookeries down to a level where they're really not causing much of a problem. So we have two phases of this. I don't know if any of these jokes will land outside of the States, but the first phase is Cotton Eye Joe, which the song goes, where did they come from, where did they go, where did they come from? Cotton Eye Joe is the name of the song. And so where do they come from, where do they go? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we're identifying habitat suitable for birds, and we want to identify locations suitable for humans. So we want to know where the best spot for the birds to be is and where the worst spot for the people to be is, and try to make sure that those aren't overlapping, right? And then the next phase will be the Field of Dreams, another American movie, but if we build it, will they come, right? Can we promote rookeries in favorable areas? So the first thing we're doing is habitat suitability modeling, looking at remote sensing, vegetation surveys, historical bird records, identifying characteristics that the urban birds are seeking, because they do really weird things in our urban areas. So we have like this one here, there's a rookery out on that small island. That one makes a whole lot of sense to us. But we also have other spots where they're showing up that make no sense, that are just concrete. So the idea was we would create a heat map. This is actually a reverse of what it says on the colors, but where red would be like low chance of rookery formation, then green would be high chance of rookery formation. And so then we can predict where they might be showing up. And then we want to create a human suitability model, working with our urban partners, with our city of San Antonio, with our urban planners, looking at the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years of where we expect human development to be, because we don't want to put a lot of effort into building a great little home for them, only for it to be a problem 20 years down the road. And so then we would look at the areas of high human use and high human development in the future. Red would be high human use, green would be low human use, and then we want to find where green matches green, right? And that's where we'll try to establish a site. And so the next phase in the next 2 years, we're going to be looking at the Western cattle egret. We're going to be putting GPS transmitters on them that are going to ping cellular towers. So we're going to have next to real-time data of where these birds are. We're trying to figure out, are they migratory birds? Are they resident birds? It'll be kind of hard to see, but if I zoom in a little bit to my neck of the woods, that tiny little green star, that's where San Antonio is. So you can see it's right on the border of, are these breeding? Are these year-round? Are they migratory? We don't really know, right? Where did they go? So this is what I was talking about. Food, shelter, protection from predators, water. Does that matter? You think it would. They're egrets after all. And this is that little island that I showed before, but also this is a Days Inn parking lot, which is concrete and oak trees. And this is the largest rookery that we have right now out in a town called Seguin. They're in this tiny little, these 3 trees on the right next to that motel are where these birds are hanging out, even though they have a plethora of beautiful, more natural areas that would make more logical sense to us as biologists. And then when we go into the field of dreams, when we have identified these good spots that might be great for these birds, then we're going to try to encourage them in by using decoy birds, by using rookery sounds played from speakers, and by creating artificial nesting structures so that they will be putting less pressure on the trees that they are nesting in. And then the last thing I'll say is networking is really important. It's the most important part of my job. There are over 15 partners involved in this. Everything from the city of San Antonio to the military are involved in this project in several different universities. And with that, thank you. And I'll take questions later in the roundtable discussion.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow, very, very interesting. But let's move into our cities now. And I'm going to first ask Esmond Osman, please get your slides ready. He's an environmental engineer from the city of Istanbul in Turkey, and he's going to tell us about their experiences. Esmond, there you are.
Let me open my camera too. Hello everyone. Thank you for introduction, Ingrid. I am Ersin, and I will share Istanbul's effort on protecting migratory birds. In this presentation, I will briefly talk about Istanbul, then our monitoring, conservation, and raising public awareness studies. Istanbul has a population of 60 million and is the center of Turkey's economy. Because of this, there are increasing anthropogenic pressures. And of course, these anthropogenic pressures bring stress to every family. We can give habitat loss, air crest, wind turbines, light pollution, invasive species, and even cats as an example for every fauna. As you can see, we are located in 2 migration flyways. One is Black Sea Mediterranean flyway, and the other is African Eurasian flyway. We have pelicans flying over, we have flamingos, vultures, falcons, storks, eagles flying over us. And you can see almost 400 different bird species in Istanbul. And as you can see, there are 6 global and 1 regional important bird areas in Istanbul that are assessed by BirdLife International. So as municipality, we think we need to work hard to protect these values. You can't protect something that you don't know. So we are conducting monitoring studies to get up-to-date data on status of bird. In Istanbul Biodiversity Project, we work with professors on 50,000 hectare area, which includes urban forests and water basins. We observed 215 bird species. We obtained breeding information for almost 130 birds. And we assessed ecological risk and potential indicator species for each area. This project was not just about birds. We studied whole flora, fauna, lichens, and soil health. But I will not mention about them. And we are hoping to continue this project in the next year with more areas and the same areas to control. In addition to our monitoring studies, we are conducting a project called Conservation of Migratory Birds of Prey in Istanbul, partnership with WWF Turkey branch. In fall and spring season, specialists from our municipality and WWF observe migration routes and cast species, and they are writing a report of that migration period. And we are hoping that after this fall ends, there will be a new report of that. And we are observing water birds with academicians. one observing point in Asia and one is in the European side of Istanbul. We are waiting scientific articles to be published to share outcomes of these studies. So this 3 project was our main monitoring studies. We are trying to keep on doing them and increasing the number of them. In our conversation efforts, we are evaluating environmental impact assessment reports. These reports are made by firms that are making projects that have big impact on environment. They share these reports to Ministry for Projects Approval, and Ministry is sharing them with all the actors, other ministries, municipalities, and citizens. So we get these reports too. In our municipal unit, we are assessing the reports to concern ecosystem. And of course, other units are assessing for different subjects. For example, in wind farm projects, we are looking for, are they making reflective colors on their blades so birds can see them? Do they place to monitor bird species, especially in the harsh weather conditions in migration periods? So they close or slow down production. For power transmission lines, are they going to install spiral markers, flappers, perching devices? Are they going to apply insulation covers? We are looking for this type of conservation methods in this environmental impact assessment reports. If they made a pledge about them, it's okay. But if not, we are writing official letters to make these pledges in their report. And of course, in these letters, we don't just write about birds. For example, if they are going to build a wind farm in an agricultural area, because decreasing bird population can increase the use of pesticides, we want them to monitor bats, bugs, pests. We want them to write these risks in their report. And we are following scientific literature to improve our work. For example, there is a study conducted in Norway that in wind turbines, painting only one blade to black decreased mortality rate of the birds. When there will be more evidence about this method, they will start to demand them in our official letters. The main challenge about this process is the main decision maker is ministry. Some of our demands are implemented and some are not. But anyway, it's good to have these comments written in official letters. About other conservation efforts, we are implementing biofriendly illumination in our urban forests. I need to mention that there are lots of green areas that are managed by other entities like ministries and district municipalities. So as Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality, we are implementing this to our urban forests in our jurisdiction. The lamps have a color temperature of 4,000 Kelvin and the poles are in the base level where we can apply. If not, we try to limit pole height to 3 to 3.5 meters. And we are using net designs that minimizes spilling of light to prevent excess light. We are hoping to decrease color temperature of lamps to 3,000 Kelvin, so it became more biofriendly. Our main challenge about light pollution is that there is no legal restrictions about it. And we are closing our urban forests after 10 p.m. so ecosystem will have a time to on its own, away from human pressure, and we don't allow activities that can cause noise problem. And we are using some infographics to protect wildlife too, and our main policy on wildlife, we are not interfering them. This is our main policy. We don't want to interfere them with it anyhow. So we are putting informative graphics about that. We are just trying to keep their habitats intact and livable for them. In left part, you can see an infographic that says, "Please don't feed the ducks." There are some ducks that migrate and some ducks are that local, but anyway, we don't want to interfere with them. And on to the right top corner, you can see an infographic about those species that are living in that area. And bottom part, it says that we are not touring this area, so the ecosystem will recover itself. So about awareness raising activities, and for me, it is the most important part of this conservation efforts. If you can get people, especially kids, to love birds and nature, they will start to protect and care about them. So we are doing our best to make them love nature. We are trying to organize minimum 6 migration observation events every year. We are trying to make these events like festivals as much as we can. You can see they are putting out some tents. Usually there are 8 or 9 of them. And each of them there is some workshops, activity. You can see a bird drawing workshop, origami, first aid for wildlife, workshops about how to use binoculars, how to count birds. There are bird observers coming to share their experiences, show their equipments on the bottom right line. They are really cool guys. And we are giving out binoculars to public, binoculars for adults and kids. And
Have we lost Ersin?
kids, and we are giving brochures about birds watching migration together in the observation towers and in the best possible locations. So I guess that's all from me. I think I want to thank organizers for getting us all together and this learning opportunity, and thank you all for giving us your precious time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ersin. And it's really interesting to see the sorts of challenges that you have in Istanbul. And if you can stop sharing now, I would like to ask our next speaker to get her presentation ready. And this time we're going to hear from another part of the world, Christina Matos. She's the local engagement expert in Barranquilla from Colombia. And Christina is going to talk to us about their experiences. I'm handing over to you, Christina. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. On our side, good morning from Barranquilla. And on behalf of the City Mayor Office, we would really like to thank for this opportunity to share on that recent transformation of the city towards becoming a more sustainable and environmental area, and involves obviously the migratory bird species. A few general remarks on the city. It's actually located in the northern Colombian Caribbean region with 1.2 million inhabitants in its metropolitan area. It's considered the 4th largest city of Colombia, and it's known for its industrial, commercial, finance, and service hub. But what I would like to show you with this picture is actually how strategically located is the city of Barranquilla, because it meets the encounter between the Magdalena River, which is one of the most important and biggest rivers of Colombia, with the Caribbean Sea belonging to the Atlantic Ocean. This means that the city is highly biodiverse within its urban area, given that the Magdalena River, the Caribbean Sea, form one very important wetland called Ciénaga de Mallorquín, which is a swamp, but it holds 4 out of the 5 species of mangroves in all the country. So it makes it a really hot spot and critical spot. But also within the city, it has a lot of streams, other wetlands, dry tropical forest, and other protection areas. This makes it the ingredients for a suitable habitat, but also a key visiting point for migratory bird species. We have over 183 species of migratory and both resident birds, but what I would like to highlight is that actually 74 are completely dependent on aquatic territories, which means they are completely dependent on the healthy ecosystem of the waters and the bodies of water. 8 out of the 183 are actually under threat, and 4 under the global standards. These are some of the species that you get to see. And in terms of migratory birds, I would like to refer the mayor of the city, Alejandro Char. He has a very singular saying, is that how Barranquilla has been transforming in the last 10 years towards becoming a welcoming city for investment, businesses, events, tourists, new citizens. It's actually aiming to become the 5-star hotel for migratory birds in its Atlantic flyway. Its strategic spot makes it such a biodiverse area that in this Mallorquín swamp, for example, you get to see a protonotary warbler hanging out in a tree, and just besides a black-netted stilt or a shorebird like a wimbler, which makes it a key critical spot. Of course, the osprey that is bringing us together with Journeys for Life has been spotted a few times in the Mallorquín swamp, and this picture is actually taken from a local bird watcher enthusiast. But we do face some challenges similar to the ones that we have seen before in the session, such as the contamination, erosion of riparian zones, loss of habitat. But I would like to highlight one in particular, is that for many years, citizens didn't have the connection with this rich ecosystem, meaning that if human activities, one of the main roles or main motives of destruction or lost habitat, that means that in any way I'm responsible as a citizen with very teeny tiny actions every day. So how do I get to have this sense of belonging and awareness if I don't get to interact with these ecosystems? And this has led to remarkable and outstanding projects that have marked the recent transformation of the city. One is aiming the master plan restoration of the Mallorquín swamp, this mangrove urban ecosystem, with both green infrastructure, meaning nature-based solution projects, besides taking care of the quality of the water, restoring mangrove seeds. It's known for its international cooperation because it does have a lot of multilateral partnerships. And one in particular is the infrastructure of the eco park. So the eco park is a wooden trail, all elevated, and it's notice that in this picture, this was not here before. It's just recently opened. It has maybe 2 years. And what it does is that it works as an educational tool for citizens to connect with this environment and raise the awareness. There are two actions that we specifically use for the conservation of birds and migratory birds. The first one is actually, unlike many other spots around the city, around the world even, it is not pet friendly. And we teach this through the concept of how domestic disturbance can affect the birds, which is nice because we actually swift the language in communication, and we teach the people that, okay, your best friend can stay at home, wait for you while you visit the home of the birds. Another action is that the eco park is actually a free plastic zone, but not in terms that it's prohibited or it's forbidden or it's like a rule. It's actually making you shift towards using plastic personal bottles instead of plastic bottles in your daily day activities. Because the eco park does have a lot of high temperatures and you do need to get hydrated when you go and visit. So it actually makes it perfect for people to get accustomed to using bottles and personal bottles. Also, the local vendors swifted all of their local business model in terms of plastic as a challenge of microplastic being the elements that birds feed from and get confused by. This was obviously something that we wanted to tackle, but through human behavior and through connection. So as they said in the beginning, healthy birds means a healthy ecosystem, but in this case also healthy citizens that with mental health connect with this ecosystem. Another case is the Riverwalk, a great case of transformation because this actually brought us to the river after many years, and we get to see the river, and just in front of it, we see the Via Parque Isla Salamanca, which is a huge protection area of Colombia with more than 56,000 hectares, and it's known for being the international airport for the birds. So through the Riverwalk, which is a linear park of 5.5 kilometers, we have found the opportunity as a birding tourism for local employment, for economic development, but as a way of preserving that habitat protection through engagement and behavior. Also, these infrastructures speaks for themselves with this educational material. We see a visitor here learning from the osprey while visiting the Riverwalk. But what do we do in cases where maybe we are not in some certain zones where citizens are not all every day, but are a bit far away, but we do get this important species such as the oyster catcher, is that we need to raise the awareness still. So we turn them into rock stars. So they become like legit characters in the mindset, the top of mind, the top of heart, and they become inspiration in events like the migratory bird festivals, We also connect, as important as for us is the carnival, many events along the year. We have actually evolved in terms of sort of implementing the global big day, the October big day, the December count as truly important events for the city, where not only like citizen science gets involved in sort of bird count, but also in terms of culture and creativity. And the recent international cooperation that we would like to highlight is with the National Audubon Society, key partners of all of this mission of the city. And we now have a sister center agreement with the Francis Baylor Forest Center due to its similarities, because we do have certain species that nest and breed in Francis Baylor Forest, but come here to the city to get well fed and find this luxury hotel in the Mallorquín Swamp. This has brought us to many different scientific tests, such as the tagging of the northern water thrush in terms of Mallorquín Swamp being one of its sites of its migratory flyway. And the most recently one with Audubon and also the private sector of the city was opening this gallery of educational information on migratory bird and resident bird species, where citizens get to interact and learn way more during their experience in the eco park. So this has been some of our lessons learned in terms of challenges. We believe that there's a huge power in citizenship, in engagement, in the mindset of people that can enjoy this ecosystem, but at the same time promote the voice to voice and this learning endeavor that the city has encountered. So we do welcome you. We hope you come here and see all the similarities that we have with all the recent cases. And here is my contact in case you want to share any further information. So thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, Christina. Some more great examples. And I'm going to ask you to stop sharing so that we can get our last speaker to prepare her presentation. And I'm really happy now to invite Julieta Villa. She's also from South America. She's the head of climate change department in the Secretariat of Environment and Urban Development from the city of Mendoza in Argentina. So Julieta, it's over to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, hi everybody, how are you? First of all, I want to say thank you to Ingrid and Ivana for this opportunity to share what is the city of Mendoza doing in biodiversity and with migratory species and what strategy we are implementing. So now I'm going to give you just a little introduction about where is the city of Mendoza. It's the capital of the province of Mendoza and is located in the center west of Argentina. The city of Mendoza is considered a forest city built in an arid ecosystem, which was able to transform the desert into an oasis. So we are talking about arid ecosystem. And just to give you a little context about how this climate governance started in 2020 with the declaration of emergency climate by decree number 95. The city of Mendoza was the first local government in declare this emergency in Argentina. And with this declaration, we create our local climate action plan with the greenhouse gases mitigation strategies and the adaptation strategies. And for us, it's really important to make data-driven decisions. So we work with these dashboards to have all the information centralized and update. So we have a few different dashboards. And now I'm going to talk about of the biodiversity dashboard. In the city of Mendoza, we are doing the bird inventory in all the green spaces of the city. The methodologies that we are using is, for example, here we have the Independence Square. This square is the principal square of the city of Mendoza, and we just go there and watch and listen and observe the species, and we write, and then all the information is uploaded in the dashboard. So here is just to know how we work. Here we have the abundance and the richness of all the information that we take in the green spaces. This one is that we have in a map, just to give us all the information to take the right decision. And for us, it's really important to have the community participation. So we work with this app. I think everybody knows iNaturalist. Here in Argentina, it calls Argentinat. And it's really good because just with the cell phone, all the people can participate. And what we do is a lot of workshops where the people, where we learn how to use this app and to identify the species. And with all of these things that I've been talking about, we know that in the city of Mendoza, we have 162 species, and that 28 are migratory species. This one is just to show you the table of all the migratory birds that we have in the city. And I would like to share with you what are other strategies that we are implementing in the city, like biological corridors and biological island. I already talked about the bird inventory and the citizens initiatives that we are doing. And the next project that I'm going to talk is about generation restoration. It's this project, we are really happy to be part of this project. And the principal objective of this is to engage ecological connectivity and ecosystem restoration. We are doing these ones with the creation of corridor. If you can see in the left picture, all the green is the corridor, and in the right picture, we are doing pilots of restoration. This in the right picture is a mountain park that is real near to the city of Mendoza. And the particularity or the highlight that I would like to share with you in this project, that they have a community participation from the beginning. All the community was participating in different workshops, in the restoration workshops, and in the construction and installation of netbox. And in all the projects, we have over 300 participating. And just another key of this project is that the participatory monitoring plan, that this involves the community tracking the results, helping to ensure a project that is sustainable over the time. So that's it. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have any question, you can send us an email.
Okay, thank you so much. And also a very rich presentation. And it's so interesting to me to see that there are similar themes, but very different in terms of challenges, but very different solutions coming out from the different cities. One common theme that I'm picking up is the importance of citizens and working with the citizens, or raising awareness. Another one is the point around monitoring and bringing the data into the planning and the decision-making systems. And then I think one of the others is the whole use of regulatory tools, whether this is a particular act or whether there's a zoning or something like that. So What I'm going to start off is to try and kick off some discussion is to just ask our three cities if they have any comments from some of the other presentations, including also the points made by Louisa and Joseph. Any comments or any questions, either to each other or to say, look, we've had a similar problem. Did you experience this, etc.? I think the point that Joseph raised about the conflicts between animals or species and humans was quite interesting as well. So let me find out if there's any questions from our cities to either each other or to one of our specialists here. Nothing. Okay. All right. Let's find out. We ask it the other way. Joseph and Louisa, any from your side, any reflections that you want to make or want to find out a little bit more from some of these cities of the types of solutions that they've come up with?
I've got one I can throw out there. I'm curious. I think it was touched on briefly in one of the slides of like international collaboration, especially here in the Americas, where we have birds flying from your cities to my city at different times of the year, and what are some strategies we could work on to increase our communications to y'all? What would be some information and means of sharing and collaborating that would be useful for y'all from us, and then also like vice versa that you could provide for us? That would be really cool.
Thanks. That's a really great one. And let's ask, I don't know who wants to start first, whether it's Christina or Julieta. Ersin, you're on another part of the world, but I think in your particular context where Istanbul particularly stands at the crossroads between two continents, you might also have something to say there. Let's hear what the cities have. Who wants to respond first? Christina.
Yes, we can actually respond because we do share a lot of similarities in the ecosystem, but we actually share the species. So we are part of this connection of root, and what we have done is with the Sister Center Agreement, we have an Eco Park Center Agreement with the Francis Baylor Forest Center of Audubon, and what we have done still is sort of exchange in experience. So we have learned from them through different webinars, seminars, learning labs also on how to take care of shorebirds precisely, and the protonotary warbler as sort of an academic experience, because besides this new signage that we now have that was based upon the input on the Francis Baylor Forest experts, but also local input, we also brought them here and they got to visit a school within the urban area and within the city. And actually the school was full of migratory birds, and they were actually thrown away by this and found out that there's a nice potential in student exchange. So actually students can have maybe like a volunteer stewardship experience between both eco parks, and also in terms of tourism. So as a visitor goes to Francis Baylor Forest, they get to see that, oh, we have a sister center agreement all the way in Barranquilla. That would be interesting to see this same bird with other birds, and I get to travel and have a nice vacation. So we do develop that sort of partnership in terms of visiting experience and traveling. So it has been a great beginning, and we obviously pursue to have connections with the even other protection areas. Those pictures that you showed on what you call the rookery or the heronry was maybe a concept that we would like to learn from, because we see the bird, but we maybe haven't tackled as much of the description and education on where it stands. On our side, we have adapted more the infrastructure towards the birds, which is funny because in Florida, it all overlaps, and it's very interesting how it does. But here is that the good thing is that we have this infrastructure that it's brand new. So we have the opportunity to pave the behavior of the citizen when it comes inside the eco park or when it comes to the riverwalk. I have to adapt to the bird, not the bird has to adapt by my own behavior. But birds are actually pretty clever still, because they do like the people, they do like the noise. We have certain like policies or certain rules, such as the Riverwalk, for example, being a great place for events, does not have any firework at all. And people love some fireworks, but we do not have any fireworks or any like flyer giving activity. And on the eco park, that maybe I can resonate with Ersin, is that, for example, the eco park closes at 6 p.m. So at 6 p.m., it actually has to remain dark, and especially for the bird species to remain calm. So it actually awakes the people into being early birds. And that is mental health, actually. When you get to have citizens that wake up early, do exercise, it shifts the dynamic of the city in those terms.
Thank you. Some really rich nuggets coming out there. Any comment, either from Yvette, Audubon Society, or Ersin, if you like to say something? Joe, any further comments, or Julieta, and Louisa is here as well. Let's get this discussion going.
To just highlight the hemisphere's impact of having centers throughout Central America, South America, and North America, really connecting on behalf of the birds, and how important it is for our urban communities and our different cultures to make space for people to interact with nature. As Christina said, it's so deeply tied to mental health to spend time outside. And there's a lot of studies that talk about neuroplasticity as we're trying to learn about the nature around us. It actually helps folks as we get older to maintain an active, youthful brain if we are trying to learn about the natural world around us. And also, when we have our youth coming out, it helps reduce fear around being in nature. So it's just so beautiful to have these unique urban spaces. And it's wonderful to hear how each of our communities is working to create human interaction with our wildlife through these protected spaces. Thank you for all the work you guys are doing.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come in here?
Yeah, I was just mentioning that it's really insightful to hear from the 3 different cities, from Istanbul, Barranquilla, and also from Mendoza. We can see some, let me say, mutual or areas that are quite similar, and mutual areas of interest towards these approaches. But also, one thing that really stands out for me is on cross-regional learning. And I just wanted to ask from any of the cities, considering they've mentioned the different approaches that they're taking towards migratory pathway conservation. And for example, on Argentinat, there's this citizen science platform. So are these tools available? Are they open data source? And can these tools be replicated, for example, in other regions, so that we can also learn from the same techniques that you have there in the South Americas, or also in Istanbul or Mendoza? Thank you.
Thanks. Who wants to go first? Julieta. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Luisa. Yes, this is an data open source, so we can share. And now we are doing with another municipalities near here. And I think that it's really important to all have the same spirit, and we want to do all this to know which species we have here in the city and in the province and national. So yes, this is an open source, and we can give you to see what we are doing.
Thank you. Before I hand to Ersin, I just want to find out, Julieta, you said it also involves national. So how does that work? Do they, what sort of support do they provide? Is it infrastructure, or is it the data, or is there funding, or how does that work?
For now, we don't have a national support right now, but we want to have. I think we need that.
Okay. So you're saying this is something that you would
yes,
like?
that we would like to.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Ersin, any comment from your side at this point?
No, I would like to make an addition to that. We are on our path to join Journeys for Life initiative, and we are making some collaborations with other countries too. Like for Istanbul, not for Istanbul, for Turkey, there are like 3 main points of birds that are coming. from west, from European part, most of the was coming to pass through Istanbul. From the east part of Turkey, they use Georgia, Batumi. So you can think that there are two boats coming. They are boats coming from west, east, and they are going from the south to Syria. So if we can have connections from east part of Europe, like Batumi, Georgia, and Syria, if we can make these connections, we can have a big data on boats, which boats coming in and which boats are going out. We made a project with a non-governmental organization in Batumi. They were counting raptors, and we visited them, and some of our experts go to count birds together, and they're putting the data on the websites about bird countings. We want to increase this collaboration first, and then maybe we can make partnership with Syria or something like that too. We can have good data on birds passing through Turkey. Just 3 points, and we are okay. And we are already handling Istanbul part from the west of Europe. We know how much we're passing through from Istanbul, but we need data from Georgia and Syria too. And yeah, we are on our path to join Journeys for Life too, initiative too.
Okay. Thank you. And maybe if you can just say about some of the interesting things that you're also doing around how to bring to raise awareness of the local community. I know that you had plans with bus stops, so it's very much a part of urban life, mobility, transport, and that you're making that link there also with nature.
Yes, we are funded from United Nations Environmental Program, and we are trying to create microhabitats to increase bugs and like provide some food for bird species. But our main objective is like increasing public awareness. We will, as you mentioned, that we are trying to use bus stops. We have some designs with these green roof bus stops. I hope we will implement them in near future, in like really close future.
Okay, thank you. I have one or two questions, but before I do that, I don't want to stifle the discussion between yourselves. I just want to find out if there's anything else that somebody would like to ask or to suggest. Not. Okay, so my question is about how these initiatives are funded. Many of you referred to very concrete initiatives and plans that you've put into place. Christina, you talked about a whole lot of infrastructure that has been developed. That obviously required a lot of funding, but it also requires funding to maintain that infrastructure. And at the same time, there are a host of other problems around polluted areas, habitats that must be restored. And I also noticed that quite a few talked about these programs having job creation possibilities. So I'd like to find out, to what extent is this money coming from the city, or does it come from other levels of government? Is there private funding coming in? Are communities putting their own time and effort in it? If we can just get some responses there, maybe start with Christina, and then we can run through that, run through all of you, in fact, not just the cities.
Yes, of course. So in the case of Barranquilla, the origin is a development plan of the government. But what makes it interesting is that the city plans ahead 80 years. So it does go beyond governmental periods. So what it does is that when it sees this project, it inserts them into their development plan for restoring these ecosystems. So it is initially funded locally. It broadens nationally with nationally financed, but in the case of Barranquilla, it has brings some really interesting international team players such as the World Bank, the Interdevelopment Bank, the AFD, the CAF. It has JP Morgan, it has multilateral organizations, it has NGOs, and it adds environmental authorities, and academy, which means academic institutions. Like, never underestimate the power of education within each territory, because they are a huge key players in terms of adding in investment in technical support, but also in studies. So we are also part of the generation restoration of UNEP. So that is actually part of this multilateral collaboration of restoring those ecosystems in the city of Barranquilla. And in terms of local employment, and even private funding, that's where the company that I work for actually comes in, because it's a mixed company. So it's private, both private and public. So it thus gives us a flexible way of managing both infrastructures such as the Riverwalk and the Eco Park. And we do get to find resources from the private sector. So if there's events or local vendors in rent, this actually contributes to the maintenance of these infrastructures and for conservation actions. Besides generating employment that are mostly local neighboring communities. So the workforce for this infrastructure are actually the neighbors. So they just walk 5 minutes to these infrastructures and work every day as the guiding officers of these infrastructures.
Thank you. I see we have two hands. I'm not sure who was first. I'm going to give the lady the the benefit of the doubt. Louisa.
Sorry, Joseph, because I just raised mine. But anyway, I just wanted to contribute towards this financial capacities, because based on our experience here, I have seen the importance and need for diversifying these funding sources. So for example, the public-private partnerships that I spoke about earlier, and how we can engage, corporate sponsorships and philanthropy dedicated to conservation funds, but also to have conservation investment plans which look at this specific, for us, specific landscapes. And I know, like for the cities and specifically on the migratory pathways, it can also focus on migratory birds, but these dedicated conservation investment plans really come in handy to diversify these funding sources and mechanisms. And then also what we look at is on development of payment for ecosystem services, which is really critical, because there's a way where we look at quantifying the economic benefits from biodiversity conservation. So all this can contribute towards funding for these cities. Thank you.
Thank you. Joseph.
Yes, we can talk about a completely different webinar series on funding, and I can go for about 10 to 15 hours on funding. It impacts every
We will
single
have one. We will have one, and I'll remember your offer.
Yeah. I mean, it impacts every single aspect of what we do, and the interesting ways and creative ways that we have to find money in the government side of things is just very complex. But I'll speak through the lens of the Rookery project that we're working on right now. And so this is a pressing wildlife management issue here in San Antonio. It's been important to the citizens of San Antonio for a long time, whether they're on the more bird loving sides or the bird hating sides. It's important, right? And they care about it. And so this research that is much needed for the sustainable solution, a big bulk of it is coming from city funds. Because it is an important thing for city council. But we're also creative. So we're at the end of our fiscal year, which the way that government spending works in North America, at least at the end of our fiscal year, we try to spend our accounts down to as low as we can get them, because if you leave any money in there, then that's signaling to the higher ups that you don't really need as much money as you were asking for. And so you got to spend it down so that they know that you need it for the next year. And so that's when we start looking around at what we can do. And so in this case, I had an extra, 5K burning a hole in my pocket. And so I called the researcher and said, give me a wish list of stuff that you need. Give me a list of equipment that you need, because I can buy equipment with my funds. And so then we went through it, prioritized the list, and bought water sample kits and soil sample kits for that research. And so we have state funds being leveraged there. We have city funds being leveraged there. They go out for private grants. There's a large animal welfare research organization here in North America that is Potentially, we're looking in talks with them about getting grants for this research because it does have to do with the welfare of the birds and the rookeries and trying to decrease their welfare in areas that are not desirable and increase their welfare in areas that are desirable to try to encourage them to move themselves. And so there's just a lot of different funding sources, even the way that I'm funded. So I am funded by a federal fund that is funded by a tax on long guns and long gun ammunition, handguns and handgun ammunition on the manufacturer. This has been in place for a long time. It's the Pittman-Robertson Act. Goes into a big federal pool of money, and then that's divvied out to the states based on the amount of hunting that you do, the conservation that you have. And the idea was that hunters were funding conservation. And so they pay 75% of my salary. The other 25% gets matched by the state, even though I'm a state employee. 75% of my salary funds comes from the feds. And so it's a very complex thing. And then how we make my state match is through the leveraged value, the theoretical value of the Master Naturalist, which is a volunteer organization that we created here in Texas. And their hour of work is considered skilled labor, valued at $26 an hour. And we can take their volunteer hours, pull them into a big pool of money, and we use that as my state match for that 25% of my paycheck. And so we say, okay, we generated this much value through our program, through our outreach, through our collaborations. Will you send out the rest of that money so that we can pay our employee? And so it's a topic I could talk about for a really long time because it's important to be creative is probably the take home.
Exactly. And some very creative ideas there. I can see some of the cities, their eyes are glinting, they're getting ideas. Giulietta.
I think that we combine different sources of funding because we need it. And we work with the public budget, with the inventories, and with the workshops, and all that kind of things. And we work with international funding too, with Generation Restoration, and with Bloomberg Philanthropies, and G7. And we work with the private sector too. We create a green fund for sustainability. So yes, we work with different sources because it's necessary.
Absolutely. And as I said just now, we definitely are planning one. This topic is a very hot topic, and I think it's, we certainly can't exhaust it in a few minutes here. I was just really so wowed by the range of things that are happening that I was wondering, now, where does this money come from? I don't know, Ersan, if you want to explain or how things happen from a funding perspective in Turkey.
Like 95% of our funding comes from the local government. We are trying to do our work with the volunteers, most of volunteers and non-governmental organizations. There are wonderful guys trying to help us to make better and better organizations. As I mentioned in my slides, there was an academician. He was okay with a partnership with us without any fundings. He got knowledge, we got some equipment, and we got some manpower. So we are collaborating without any funding. And we have some funding from United Nations Generation Restoration Project, but like I can say 95% of our work done with the local government's funding.
Okay, thank you. And I hope you've got some really interesting ideas here around how you can expand that funding envelope.
I hope.
Yeah. Yvette, anything from Audubon Society as a society? What is your experience from the funding perspective? Any maybe other examples that you've seen?
So Audubon Texas is the state office with the larger Audubon Society. And over the last 2 years, they have been working to restructure how we support our centers, which are our biggest way to interact with the public, and how we support positions like mine, where I work with high school students most of the time. I also do some bird banding and other types of public outreach. So Audubon does rely mainly on grants that we get through state organizations like TPWD, that we get through federal organizations like the National Science Foundation helped us develop a climate change curriculum. And then we also have a robust community of private donors. Anybody who donates, between like $5 and sometimes $5 million to Audubon goes into our different types of programs and public outreach. So we are tapping into as many resources as possible to continue to do the work that we do and to continue to encourage people to love birds and protect the spaces that they need.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And on this note, I realize we've come to the end of our first in our new Learning Lab series. I'm going to ask my tech colleague just to put up the last slide. I want to just repeat here that this has really been an appetizer today, just to give not only these cities here, but also a wider audience that we invited some sort of sense of what we're going to be doing in future. Our next series or next Learning Lab sessions in the series will be closed. It will not be open like this one to non-Journeys for Life cities. So if there are any cities out there that are not yet part of Journeys for Life, I hope you are inspired to join and become part of this network. We've had several cities here around the table, and I want to thank them for mentioning the fact that they're part of our initiative, and really just to invite you to contact either myself or Ivana. It's very simple to sign up. It doesn't cost a cent. We're really wanting to build this network so that we can put more cities in touch. On the Osprey, for example, we have Barranquilla, and we're connecting with Seattle, but there are a whole lot more stops along the route. There are many other routes. We don't want to cover just birds. There are fish. Somebody mentioned the butterfly, the monarch butterfly. We'd love to get some cities along those routes. There are ungulates. I come from a part of the world in Africa where we have massive migrations. Louisa, we must chat, within the whole East Africa area. So really, I want to thank everybody, and once again, especially to our cities who've shared their experiences, to Louisa and Joseph and Yvette. We will be in touch going forward, and I just want to thank everybody again. Thank you so much, and hope to see many more cities in our next closed series.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all. Bye.